friends. We are glad to be back with you after a whirlwind of a weekend. We flew up to Pennsylvania to be with Faith Baptist in Johnstown. And their couples retreat, marriage retreat they had at, White Sulphur Springs. Yeah, like a nice little campground conference center out in seemingly the middle of nowhere.
It was beautiful.
We got in a day early and went and did some hiking and things like that. And we ate at this little restaurant called Jean Benet.
Mm-hmm.
And it was an old tavern built in like 1762 or something like that. So super old, super, it was like a very interesting, fun environment.
It was charming, so charming.
And the food was fantastic.
They lit like an old-fashioned candle when we sat down. The lights were very dim, so we kind of had this like beautiful little romantic ambiance and amazing food, and like classical, beautiful music was playing.
Yeah.
It was absolutely lovely.
Well, and I was looking up restaurants in the area to try somewhere new, and found Jean Benet, but it was out in the middle of nowhere, basically. So I told Lysandra, I'm like, well, let's just drive by. If nobody's there, we'll find a different place to eat in town. And we pulled up, and it was packed. Parking lot was full. So I said, this is the place. And it's definitely the place. Like, if you're in the area, I highly recommend checking it out, getting something to eat. But had a great time at the marriage conference. We spoke 6 times over 3 days. And then, and had a fantastic time, by the way. It's one of the funnest conferences, retreats, probably what we've done.
Yeah, it was really fun.
Everybody was very engaging, very excited about the retreat itself and the content.
And they were lighthearted.
Yeah.
Like joking around, having a good time. It was like hanging out with your friends.
Well, and you can just tell there are people who enjoy being around each other, and that makes all the difference in the world. Mm-hmm. So even though we covered some hard topics and encouraged them to have some hard conversations with each other, it was great. But then we finished up Saturday morning, had to drive 2.5 hours back to Pittsburgh to catch a plane back to Palm Coast so that I could be ready to speak on Sunday, which was my birthday.
Happy birthday, Thomas.
Yeah. So,
Mr. 45.
But travel went great. It was our first time flying Southwest, and I will say Southwest has got to be the best organized, flight out there.
It was very well done. Yeah.
The way they do the seating and all that was just fantastic. Service is it's not even comparable to other airlines that we've taken. So it was great. Now, glad to be back home, sitting in these chairs, getting ready to share some things with you this morning. Going to be talking about growing up in a divorced home and the impact that can have on your marriage and your relationship. So it'll be a good conversation. Okay, I think we're caught up.
I think we're ready.
Let's gather around, everybody. It's time for a family meeting. The Family Meeting is a show that's all about family relationships. We're the Osterkamps. I'm Thomas, and this is my beautiful wife, Lysandra.
Hello, and welcome to our family. Welcome to episode 263 of the Family Meeting podcast. On today's episode, we're going to discuss growing up in a divorced home. Whether your parents divorced when you were young or later in life, our goal for this episode is to help you understand how your background affects your marriage and to walk forward in wholeness and in hope.
Before we jump into the content for today, we just finished up marriage retreat in Johnstown, Pennsylvania with our friends at Faith Baptist Church. Had a great time with Andrew and Ginger and their church.
It was fantastic.
Had such a fun time. I thought all the sessions went great. Mm-hmm. And back home and got into church, spoke yesterday. But we're looking forward to the next marriage conference we have, which is going to be in Garland, Texas. We're going to be with Levon Drive Baptist Church, Robbie Green and his church. Looking forward to that event, just 10 days away or so.
Mm-hmm.
What were you going to say?
I was going to say that yesterday was your birthday, and everyone on the podcast needs to celebrate Thomas.
Celebrate my birthday.
Thomas is now a 45-year-old man.
45. I'm getting up there.
Yeah.
I'm going to have some wisdom soon.
I'm hoping.
But we are looking forward to that marriage conference. We post a link on social media, so if you want to register, I had one of our listeners reach out and message me about a link to register for that event, so we sent that out to them. Look forward to see all of you there. Garland, Texas, Levon Drive Baptist Church. From time to time we get some comments and some messages and feedback on the podcast, and got this encouraging comment from Lloyd William this morning. He said, really convicted and helped by your and Lysandra Osterkamp's podcast episode on emotional maturity and emotional integrity. Thanks. And so appreciate that feedback. It's always nice to know who's listening and what they think about the different episodes, because we have conversations that we find interesting, topics that we think are helpful, but we don't always know unless you tell us. And so one of the things you can do to help us and help others find the content that you think is helpful is to share it on social media. If you want to give us a shout out, family meeting, or if you want to tag Lysandra or I, that'll go a long way in helping other couples. And it's an easy, free way that you can help us spread the word about what we're doing here and what's been helpful to you.
So thank you, Lloyd. We appreciate that shout out.
Yes, we do. And he's been a long time listener.
Yeah,
He's
a faithful friend.
Yep, listening for years. So we appreciate you, and we'd love to hear from others of you. Feel free to drop in your ideas for episodes as well, topics that you want to hear about.
I love getting episode ideas from our listeners. Those are my favorite ones, because you just feel like, okay, this is what somebody needs. This is relevant to what's happening in people's lives right now. And I think that even more so than they know, they're helping someone else.
Yes.
Someone else probably has that same question. Somebody else probably needs some more information on that topic. And so you're helping us, but you're also helping other listeners. So we really appreciate your episode ideas.
Because that's the thing, is no one's going through something that no one else is going through.
That's right.
Like, if you're facing it, there are other people out there who are going through the same thing, struggling with the same thing, have the same questions. And it's like the scripture tells us, like, there's no temptation that you go through that isn't common to man. In other words, what you're facing, tons of people are facing. So it's not brand new to you. And so if you have that thought or that idea or that question, it really can help somebody else. And so we appreciate what you're doing to help our community. That's
right. All right, let's jump into our episode for today, talking about coming from a divorced home. The family you come from really does shape the family you build.
Yeah.
And it's just something to keep in mind. Now, I'm going to say right off the bat, and of course we're going to dig into this, but I want to say right off the bat, if you have parents that are divorced, it does not mean that there's no hope for your family. It doesn't mean that you are damaged or you are second-class citizen. It doesn't mean that you cannot have an amazing marriage and an awesome parenting experience. So we want to just say that right off the bat.
Well, and that's good news, because 50% of marriages end in divorce. And so it is something that impacts a lot of us. And it is good to know, like, hey, we're not behind everybody else. We're not a step behind or a step below just because of where we came. I like to say this often: your past defines, like it describes you. It doesn't have to define you. Right. If I can get my words put together, it describes you, does not define you. So if you came from a broken home, that just describes the way that you grew up. It doesn't have to define you, but you've got to understand where you came from and the effect that it can have if you're not willing to put in some conscious effort.
That's right. So we want to explore how growing up in a divorced home affects your marriage, from trust issues to conflict styles to fear of abandonment. The patterns that we experience as children often reappear in the way we relate to our spouse.
Yeah.
But your past doesn't have to define your future. So that's what we want to leave you with, some hope today for sure.
Yeah, and so this episode we're going to share 5 common ways a divorced upbringing influences marriage. There's a number of other things that we could talk about. We choose to limit this so we're not sitting here total Joe Rogan style 3-hour episodes.
Yeah.
But let's kick it off here, and we'd love to hear in the comments something that hey, maybe it's one of the things we don't hit on today.
Yeah.
That you feel like is a big effect. But first of all, Lysandra, you mentioned this kind of in the opening just a second ago, is fear of commitment or abandonment. Mm-hmm. Witnessing a failed marriage, especially one marked by conflict or emotional distance, can instill a fear that relationships are inherently unstable. Mm. And you see this a lot on social media with posts and different things that talk about this, that, hey, all relationships are doomed to fail, that no one is trustworthy, no one is faithful. And that's not the case. That just because you witnessed a broken relationship growing up in your home doesn't mean that your relationship is necessarily doomed to fail. Mm-hmm. That your husband or your wife is destined to cheat on you or be unfaithful or leave you. Yeah. But it can, for a lot of reasons, especially depending upon your age, you can kind of take that in as, hey, this is my fault, and everybody leaves, and there's a number of psychological effects that it can have on you.
But even if your parents were married all through your growing up, you graduated, you got married, and then your parents divorced, even that, I think, can make you start to rethink your own marriage, where you're like, if it could happen to them, it could happen to me. I've been married now for 5 years, 10 years, whatever you want to say, and they got divorced after 40 years. Like, is it inevitable for me? And you could have this fear of commitment or fear of abandonment.
Well, and this is one of the conversations I was having with one of the couples at the marriage retreat in Johnstown, Pennsylvania. They'd been married forever, older couple, sweet couple, and I was just talking about how amazing it was that they'd been married that long, because it's a rarity, when you've got somebody that's been married 3, 4, 5 decades, and they basically were like, well, we're this old, where are we going to go? And I'm like, well, I mean, a lot of older couples are getting divorced also now. And so they were relating, like, friends of hers that, hey, they thought their marriage was great, and that couple had been married for a very long time also. And so, it's becoming more of a trend where older couples are getting divorced also.
That's right. And so if this has happened to your parents, that fear of commitment or abandonment can come into play. And this may lead to hesitation in fully committing in your marriage. Or it also can come out by overanalyzing your spouse's action. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you're kind of picking apart everything they do, everything they say, the looks they give. Is he cheating on me? Is she faithful? And starting to overanalyze things. It also can come out in needing frequent reassurance. So like constantly needing to be reassured, like, are you in this for the long haul? Are you happy? Am I happy? Are we good? Are you cheating on me? Or whatever it may be.
And I think it is important to understand where your spouse is coming from and the kind of home that they lived in. So, if you understand that your spouse grew up in a home where divorce was present, or even later on while you're married, this divorce happens, the effects that has on them can help you to understand what they're going through. So, like, Lysandra mentioned, they may need more reassurance than you normally would, and so being there for them in that way can help out a lot. Well,
and being patient with them needing the reassurance, because it can get old, right? It can get old to have to constantly reassure someone.
Don't I know it?
I'm sure you do. And but it's something that they need, and it's a way that you can meet their needs and show love to them. Another area where this is going to possibly come into play is communication styles, whether positive or negative.
Yeah.
Children often absorb the way their parents handled conflict, whether by yelling, stonewalling, or avoiding problems. And this is true whether your family, your parents are divorced or not.
Yeah.
You take in these communication styles and conflict styles, and then you just show up in your marriage with them. And you don't even know you have them, and you don't know that they're not normal. What you witnessed growing up, you assume that is the right way to do things, and if it doesn't seem right, then you assume there's something wrong with me. Children typically will think, I'm the problem here. My parents are probably doing things right. And then you bring that into your marriage.
Well, and this is one of the things that we often talk about when it comes to conflict in a marriage is, hey, if you can avoid fighting in front of your kids, try to avoid fighting in front of your kids, because they just don't need that in their life. But hey, we live in a close quarters. Sometimes it is inevitable. And so to the extent that your children hear an argument, they hear a fight or whatever else, is the extent that they need to see and hear the reconciliation as well. So they can kind of absorb, hey, how do we resolve conflict? But they're soaking it all in.
Yeah, they are.
And it was funny. I saw a meme just yesterday, and it was basically like you tell your kids, please, thank you, and you're trying to train them on all this stuff, and you say these things 10,000 times, and then you like say one thing you shouldn't, and I'm not going to repeat what the phrase was, but it had a few curse words in it, and it was like, hey, you say this one time, and they never forget it, and they repeat it over and over and over again. But they're soaking it all in, including the way that you handle conflict. But here's the impact. You witness this growing up, the impact it can have on your marriage. They may either repeat dysfunctional patterns. So if you kind of yelled a lot, they can repeat that. If you stonewalled, they can stonewall. Or if you just totally avoided conflict and avoided problems, they tend to repeat the same kind of pattern. And we see that cycle. Either that, or they can be hyper aware and work hard to develop healthy communication skills. But that second one's typically a choice that they make.
Yeah,
which it's like, I know this is the negative thing. I don't want to do this. This isn't right. I've got to change.
And that, I think, is what you have done, because you saw a lot of unhealthy communication and conflict resolution in your parents and just how you grew up, and you have made a choice not to do that. So you're hyper aware. You definitely fall into this second category.
It's what I try to do. But I would say it's been a growth journey, because initially I fell into those patterns, and there was a kind of a come to Jesus moment that you had with me before we got married. We were engaged, but where it was like, okay, I need to do something different here. So it wasn't a natural. I recognized it. It was I had somebody from the outside that I loved and cared about and valued their opinion is the reason why I chose to change that. So,
but I think that should offer hope to everyone.
Most definitely, yeah.
Like,
you're right.
Just because you witnessed dysfunctional patterns, just because you grew up in a volatile home, or a home, where there was narcissism, or, mom pitting children against dad, or whatever it may have been, that does not mean it's what you have to have in your marriage. There is hope for you. You can make a choice to be hyper aware, to work hard to develop those healthier communication and conflict resolution skills.
Third thing we see here, the impact they can have, is trust issues. Divorce, especially one involving infidelity or betrayal, can create long-lasting trust issues. Once that trust has been broken, and you've seen that happen in a relationship that you view as like the stability of your life, then the long-lasting impact that can have as you carry that forward can definitely go a long way.
And so this is going to become a part of your marriage relationship most likely. And there's a good chance that this could result in jealousy, where all of a sudden now, because of what you witnessed from your parents, now you're so worried about it happening in your life that you're very jealous of whatever is happening with your spouse, and you don't trust anything that's happening with them. It could also come out in difficulty being vulnerable, where you have a hard time being vulnerable in your relationship because of what you witnessed your parents go through, and now you don't trust it all, so therefore you can't be vulnerable. Another way that this can impact your marriage is an over-reliance on control. And you just put a lot of weight on being in control and feeling secure in the relationship. And that becomes extremely important to you. All right, let's look at the next one. Number 4 is skepticism toward long-term relationships. So now what happens is, if you've seen your parents get a divorce, this marriage and this relationship that was the stability in your life, and it crumbled.
Yeah.
Then now you maybe start to question some longevity or purpose of marriage itself, and you begin to kind of sort of distrust marriage itself. And you begin to look at other people's marriages, even if they've been married a long time, and you start to think, are they real? Like, what's he hiding? What's she hiding? What's really the actual situation there? And they're not going to last either. We're not going to last either.
Well, and it goes kind of hand in hand with the trust issue, and just kind of reflects that onto the marriage institution of marriage itself. And so they may view marriage as just temporary. Like, this is a temporary transaction for this moment, whether you're talking about economically, relationally, socially, or whatever else. And so because of that view, you can keep emotional distance, where you're not willing to get super close because you're looking at, well, this isn't going to last anyway. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people go into marriage with this view that as long as I'm getting something out of it, then I'm here. But as soon as my quote unquote needs aren't being met, or I'm not being happy, or whatever else,
or I fall out of love,
and I'm going to dip before they do. So they're kind of reluctant to fully invest in the relationship.
I think sometimes this can come out in like a literal financial situation, where people don't want to combine their finances because they're thinking this might not last anyway.
Yeah, sure.
And it'll be a lot more difficult to detangle everything. And so they never actually combine finances and view money as ours, not hers and his. And then that can happen emotionally too.
Well, and that's a great point you bring up about the finances, because in that instance, I'm not saying every time a couple doesn't completely combine their finances. That works well for us. And I think that's the way that you should go, because you are, one flesh. But a lot of times that has to do with the lack of trust as well. Because if nothing else, like, I can financially take care of myself. I'm not dependent upon this person. If I want to leave, I have the financial means to be able to do that. And so not always, like I said, but in this case, that you've got a backup plan, something to hold on to and fall back on.
Yeah. All right. Now, the last one that we want to share with you is not in a negative vein, but it is in a positive vein. Because if you come from a divorced family, this can actually become a positive side to your relationship, because it can make you have a stronger desire for stability and for a long-term marriage, a marriage that will last. So it can actually kind of make you go the other direction, right? Where you're saying, I don't want to end up like my parents did, so I'm going to work so hard. I'm going to make sure I do the right things. I'm going to invest in the relationship. I'm going to put in the work, so to speak. in order that will not happen to me. Because some people who experience family instability are deeply motivated. So it comes out to motivation rather than repeating the cycle and I'm just, I don't trust, or I'm very jealous or whatever. But it can actually be a positive thing where it's a great motivation, where I want to break the cycle. I don't want to be like my parents were. I want to make my marriage work. And they can be more intentional, work harder. They can work to reconcile and resolve issues and keep a short account. They can prioritize emotional security and vulnerability, and maybe even they value things like therapy and counseling, where they want to get help because they don't want to end up like their parents' marriage. So understand that not every effect that coming from a divorced home has on your marriage is negative. There can be a really positive effect.
Well, and what you said there brings to mind some friends of ours where he grew up in a home where they were evicted and often didn't know where they were going to live in this or that. And so he, because of that, is motivated to work very hard to provide for his family, to make sure that they never are put in that situation that he was put in. And this is the thing that I want to share with you, some biblical truth about breaking generational cycles of brokenness. Now, for those of it that kind of want to dive deeper into this, and you've got some cycles you want to break, right now we're in a group cohort. We're in the middle of it right now, talking about breaking those cycles, and it's been a great time of kind of evaluating our own personal lives and hearts and gaining the tools to be able to break those things. And it is in the middle of it. You could always jump in the middle of it if you wanted to, but we do one-on-one coaching on breaking the cycle as well. And you can also look forward to the next group coaching we do on that. But the thing is, like, what we do can and often does impact our kids and future generations, positively and negatively.
Right.
Like, if we choose to live for Christ and we follow his example and we instill those positive things into our kids, that can have a great impact for generations. The opposite is also true. We think about things, and we've talked about some of the things as far as marriage are concerned, but drunkenness, addiction, and some of these cycles that we're dealing with people in our coaching group, they have had an effect from parents and from grandparents in future generations. And we often look in the scripture and talk about, the sins of the father and the effect they have. But here's the thing is, they can have an impact, but that doesn't have to be your story. It's not like, if you choose to go this route, that automatically means your kids will go the same route.
Yeah.
And I think about that, that you are not bound by your parents' sins. So whatever your parents did, yes, that does have an impact on us, but that doesn't have to be your destiny or my destiny. Think about Ezekiel 18:20 that says this: "The soul who sins shall die. The son shall not suffer for the iniquity of the father, nor the father suffer for the iniquity of the son. The righteousness of the righteous shall be upon himself, and the wickedness of the wicked shall be upon himself." In other words, you are accountable and responsible for your own actions. You're not responsible for what your parents did, and they're not responsible for what you do. And a lot of times as parents, we kind of turn that other side of the coin around, and we kind of take upon ourselves and blame ourselves for what our kids do. We all have to make our own choices, and we all have to live with the results of our choices. And if you don't like what's going on in your life, you are the one who has to choose to do something about that, to change that. Stop blaming your parents. Stop blaming your grandparents. Stop blaming where you came from or the things that have happened to you. Take responsibility for what you have done, the choices you have made, how you have responded, and choose to do something different. And I love that because none of us are bound by what's happened to us in the past or even what we've done in the past.
Right.
We can, if we've done it, I can own it, I can confess, I can find forgiveness and a fresh and brand new start and go a new direction. And the same is true for you. But here's the truth. God holds individuals accountable for their own choices, not for the sins of their parents. And here's the beautiful thing. You and I are not doomed to repeat the past.
That's right.
Once again, your past describes you. It doesn't have to define you unless you let it.
And as I was listening to you share that verse, it also makes me think that there may be some adults out here who are listening to this. And even though, you're an adult, but there's a child in you. Like that child, what you went through, that's still there. That's still a part of you.
Sure.
And maybe you need to hear this, and maybe this is just something nobody's ever told you, but your parents' divorce was not your fault.
Yeah.
What happened in their marriage is not because of you, the stress that you added to the home, the way you behaved, the grades in your school. It is not your fault that they got a divorce. I don't know if you need to hear that or not. Maybe you know it, maybe you don't. But hear me say that it is not your fault. They made their own choice, and they are responsible for their choice.
Yeah, and you're right. They made their own choices about how they were going to, respond to stress and pressure, how much or little they were going to invest in their marriage relationship. There's a myriad of things that happened that led to that divorce, and you aren't one of them.
That's right. All right, so maybe you came from a divorced home and you've heard these things, and you're like, okay, it's me, but what do I do? What do I do moving forward? Because we always want we want to help you move forward. We want to be moving forward. So we want to talk about some practical steps that can help you build trust and stability and security in your own marriage if you did come from a divorced home. And the first thing we want to encourage you to do is to practice consistent, open communication. The Bible says, and I love this verse, we use it a lot on this podcast because it's so important in relationships.
Yeah.
It's in Ephesians 4:25 that says, let each one of you speak the truth with his neighbor, for we are members of one another. You have to speak truth. And then there's another verse that we love to reference, and it is speaking the truth in love. So yes, you're going to speak the truth, but you're going to do it in the right way. And maybe you don't know what that looks like. Our podcast episodes, part 1 and part 2 on emotional maturity and emotional integrity can help you with that and help you identify how to do that. But you've got to be open and consistent in your communication with your spouse, because if your communication breaks down, it will lead to other breakdowns in your marriage.
Well, and here's what it looks like practically. So Lysandra's, emphasizing how important that consistent, honest, open communication is. But okay, Lysandra, Thomas, how do I do that? Mm-hmm. And you have to be intentional about it. She said practice. You have to practice consistent.
Yeah. And
so that comes with intentionality. You set aside time each week for honest, undistracted check-ins. Now, this says each week. We encourage you daily. Daily to be talking about what's going on in your life, how you're feeling. Don't hide your thoughts or feelings. And I know that's hard, especially if you've been in a situation where your trust has been broken, either by how you've witnessed what happened in your parents' relationship, or maybe something that's happening in a past relationship for you. But in order to build trust, you have to open yourself up and become vulnerable. You have to share openly, even when it's uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. It's impossible to build trust and connection while you are hiding your thoughts and feelings and being deceptive and wearing a mask. Another part of this is owning your mistakes quickly. So we all make mistakes. We all fail. We all, at times, say things we shouldn't, do things we shouldn't, respond in an inappropriate manner. Literally just last week, Lysandra and I, we got into a fight, an argument, and Lysandra responded in a way that I think you would say wasn't right. I responded in another way that wasn't right, and just kind of built up the tension in our relationship. And we finally came to a point where we were able to talk through it, and Lysandra owned her part of it, and I had to come back and say, you know what, my response to that wasn't right either. And I kind of escalated the situation by not responding the way that I should. But instead of making excuses, we owned it. And that's where that trust is built.
And I love how you said to own it quickly, because so often we want to make excuses or push it off, or we don't want to be the first one to say sorry or whatever. And it's like, it's taking these simple issues and drawing them out so much longer than they would need to be. Like, it would be very beneficial to you and to your marriage if you could just own it quickly.
Yeah.
Like, eventually you're probably going to get there. If you are a follower of Jesus, if you are open to his Holy Spirit, if you are trying very hard to have a good, positive marriage relationship, then probably eventually you're going to get to the point where you say, like, all right, yeah, I shouldn't have yelled, I'm sorry, or I shouldn't have ignored you, I'm sorry, or whatever. But, like, why not just skip that whole long drawn out process where everybody's mad at each other? There's this nasty tension in the relationship. You can just feel it in the home. Why not just skip that and hurry up and get to the owning it? Just hurry up and be like, okay,
yeah,
you're right. It was me. I did this. It was 5 seconds ago. I understand I did this. I'm so sorry. I want to make it right now. Like, just get there faster, you know?
I mean, and our pride often gets in the way. We talked about ego and pride and all that. And, but the thing is, confession builds safety over time.
Yeah.
It's like, do I know that Lysandra is going to sometimes make mistakes and react inappropriately or have the wrong attitude, tone, whatever? I know that. But here's what I also know. That when Lysandra's confronted about it, she's going to own it. She's going to confess it and not make excuses, because she's committed to this relationship.
Absolutely.
And making it work. Mm-hmm. And hopefully over time she can see and understand and know the same thing from me.
Yes.
And so if you can practice this in your own life, then your spouse comes to understand and trust you over time as well. It's not that you have to be perfect, because none of us are perfect.
No. Mm-mm.
And we all know that we're not going to be perfect. But when we make mistakes, it's like, okay, yeah, I know they're going to make mistakes, but I also know they're going to own it. They're going to confess. They're going to get it right. They're going to restore the relationship.
Mm-hmm. That's right. And honest communication lays the groundwork for trust. So when your spouse knows that you're real and transparent, it becomes a lot easier for them to feel safe and to feel connected to you.
Yeah.
So don't kind of shoot yourself in the foot, so to speak, by not being honest in your communication.
Second way you can kind of practically build this trust up is to show up consistently in small things. Think about what Jesus says in Luke 16, verse number 10. He said, "One who is faithful in a very little is also faithful in much." Mm-hmm. And so you really show your character and who you are in the small things that you do and say, or in the small things that you kind of refuse. I'm not going to do that. Like, oh, it's no big deal. It's just a small thing. Yeah, but small things lead to big things.
Oh, yeah.
And if I can show consistency in the small things, then my spouse will learn to trust me in the big things. Yeah. Especially when you're working to rebuild trust from whatever the situation is.
Yeah.
It's not about the grand gestures.
Mm-hmm.
The grand gestures don't mean anything if you're not consistent in the small things day to day.
That's right. They can actually do the reverse.
Yeah.
Where you can actually resent the grand gestures.
Because it's you kind of look at the grand gestures as they're just trying to get out of whatever the situation is. Mm-hmm. They're just trying to draw attention away from what they've actually done, and they're not willing to do the hard work.
Yeah. So the way to be consistent in the small things is to keep your word. Whether it's about taking out the trash or being home on time, keep your word. And I love the episode we did a little while ago on dependability. And the question is, are you a dependable person? Are you a dependable mom? Are you a dependable dad? Does your spouse depend on you? Can they depend on you? And I love that episode because dependability is extremely valuable to me. It's a top character quality for me. Personally, it means a lot to me. And so when you keep your word consistently, that shows that you are consistent in the small things. Following through on promises, no matter how small they are.
Well, and I think, you bring up dependability and how important it is to you. I think deep down, if we all thought about it, dependability in a relationship is important to each of us, because if you can't count on somebody, you really can't trust them.
Right.
And so dependability is just, it's a great word to describe showing up in the small things on a regular basis, day after day, moment by moment.
Right. And it's not just physically, right? Like you say you'll be home at a certain time, you're home at a certain time. That's great. But what about emotionally? Are you emotionally dependable? And this is something I find in Thomas, which I'm very thankful for. When I am sad, when I'm hurt, when I'm angry, when I'm overwhelmed, exhausted, or whatever, I know when I go to Thomas, he's not going to be cold. He's not going to avoid me, but he will respond with care. He will be there for me emotionally when I need him, which is often. And
it is often, yes. You're an emotional creature. I mean, we're all emotional, but you are emotional.
Take that to the next level, y'all.
Yep.
But it's important to be consistent emotionally with your spouse. When you can be there, they know, like, when they turn and they turn to you, they're going to get what they need from you. You're dependable.
Well, and yesterday was my birthday. And all of my daughters, for those of you maybe new to the podcast and haven't taken time to look at the show art, Lysandra and I have 4 daughters together. And so each of my daughters wrote me notes, and more than one of them talked about how they were thankful because I notice how emotionally how they're doing, and if they're not doing well, if they appear sad or something's wrong, like I come up, ask them what's wrong, I hug them, I hold them, and that's a big deal to the people that are in your life.
Yeah.
Where you're emotionally dependable for the people, and especially for you men out there, I think it's important for you to show that care and that concern. And listen, I know for some of you guys, well, and some ladies too, depending upon how you grew up, that emotions, the topic of emotions can make you a little bit uncomfortable. But hey, being there for them in those moments goes a long way in helping to build that trust and that stability. Stability is built more through daily consistency than grand gestures, like we talked about. When you show up reliably, your spouse feels secure and safe in the relationship.
And there is a lot of value to feeling safe and secure. Those are not just small words.
No, you can't have trust without an environment where you feel secure and safe.
Well, and you think about coming from a divorced home. When that divorce happened, the safety was gone. Like where you felt safe no longer existed. The security was gone. You felt secure in this family unit and it blew up. The security is gone. So feeling safe and secure in a relationship is a huge deal. Another thing that you need to do to kind of build this in your own marriage is to prioritize spiritual unity and prayer.
That's good.
It's so important, isn't it? And now, whether or not you came from a divorced home, this is important. But this is extremely important for those of you who are trying to kind of overcome some of these things that are maybe feel like a cloud over you or a weight on your back coming from a divorced home. And I love Ecclesiastes 4:12 because it says, though one may be overpowered, 2 can defend themselves. A cord of 3 strands is not quickly broken. And you think about it, there's you and your spouse. You are one flesh, the 2 of you together. And then the 3rd strand is God. It is him. And you need to invite God into your relationship and into the brokenness, into the fear, the trust issues, or whatever else.
I read Ecclesiastes 4 here, and the part I like is about, hey, by yourself you're cold.
Yes.
But if you got somebody snuggling up next to you, you're warm.
Yeah, you love that because you're a real snuggler.
Yeah, just kind of what we do. I crank the air down at night so that we can snuggle up and be nice and warm.
Yeah. And I love it too. I love it.
Sorry, I just got derailed by seeing that verse, and
yeah.
It's right next to the other one.
Your eyes are like all glossed over, and you have like this gentle smile because you're thinking about snuggling.
Yeah, it's literally one of my favorite parts of our day. Is we get to the end of the day, we go into our room, and we just kind of snuggle up, watch TV for a little bit, maybe chat a little bit about what's going on, what happened in our day, or what we have to do tomorrow. But that time where it's just the 2 of us. I love it.
And almost every single night, Thomas turns over and lays on my stomach, and I start rubbing his head, and he goes, it's my favorite part of the day right here.
Yeah.
Almost every single night. It's very, very sweet. But there's safety and security in that too.
Sorry.
But
No,
that isn't even the verse that we were talking about. The
Back
verse that
on
we're talking
track.
about is 3 strands, right?
Yes.
And the third strand in your marriage needs to be the Lord. So what that looks like, if you're wanting to make that a part of your marriage, and inviting God into it, where it's not just you and your spouse kind of facing the world alone, but it's you, your spouse, and God facing the world, facing the struggle. Pray together regularly. We talk about this a lot on the podcast, so you may be like, give me something new. I can't, because this is the foundation. It's got to be there. And the other reason why we have to repeat this all the time is because I know you don't pray together regularly.
Well, we all need reminded, right?
We all
need
do.
reminded regularly.
But how do I know that these couples out here struggle to pray regularly together, Thomas?
Because we do.
Exactly.
We do.
And we talk about marriage every single week, and we prioritize it very highly in our lives. But we still struggle to pray regularly together, and these are good reminders for us.
Yeah.
And sometimes it might feel awkward at first when you pray and you're like, oh gosh, we're just in our bedroom praying together, praying out loud. It might feel awkward, but it will become more comfortable, and it's such a blessing.
Yeah.
It really is. I just feel my whole soul be blessed when Thomas prays for me.
It is. There's something, and we have episodes on this, but it's beautiful to hear your spouse, the person that you love more than anything, just kind of call out your name and what's going on in your life, to God in prayer.
Right. And if you're as close as you should be, and you're investing in your marriage the way you should be, and you're caring about your spouse the way you should be, your prayers are going to be really, really intentional, really, really specific. They're going to mean a lot because you know more than anyone else about your spouse. Another thing to kind of add into your life to prioritize prayer and spiritual unity is to read your Bible together or a devotional, maybe once a week. Maybe you're like, dude, I cannot do it daily. It's too much. Okay, once a week, Saturdays. Or we have a date night. We're going to bring our devotional book and we're going to read at the restaurant. Yeah, you might get some looks. That's all right.
Which, if you're looking for a devotional, we have 31 Days of Wisdom that takes a proverb a day, but you could do this once a week and literally take 6 months or so to work your way through it. And we just highlight one verse or a couple of verses in each chapter and focus in and apply it to marriage. There's some discussion questions for you to go over together. And it takes the thought process of, hey, what are we going to do spiritually? What are we going to look at or study together? And helps you kind of gain some wisdom from Proverbs for your marriage.
Right.
So if you're looking for that, you can go to Amazon and find it there. You can go to familymeeting.org/shop and see it there.
And have you ever been on a date night where the two of you are just sitting there staring at each other, trying to think of what conversation to have? We actually have this problem sometimes because we do everything we do together. We are a team in everything. We paint together. We do church work together. We podcast together. We speak together. We run these Airbnb businesses together. And so a lot of times, when we sit down and it's okay, we're really caught up on everything. There's not a lot to talk about. So sometimes we'll pull out our phone and look up discussion questions for marriages or whatever. And it'll be something silly what's your dream vacation or whatever. But if you've ever had that moment in a date night where you're I don't really know what to talk about, I need a conversation starter, then these devotionals are really helpful. Yeah. Because it's got it there. It's got the little bit of the Bible, a little bit of the lecture, so to speak, the information, and then it's got the discussion questions. So you've got something to talk about, and it's going to stimulate conversation, and it's going to help you to get closer to one another.
Well, and you can also talk about what God is teaching each of you individually.
Yes.
And just kind of share that, which is something that Lysandra and I do on a regular basis. And you're inviting God into your marriage, which strengthens your bond at the deepest level. Spiritual unity brings peace, humility, and a shared sense of purpose.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
So that's how to build up some trust practically. What about, let's talk for a little bit as we kind of wind down this episode about how to invite God's healing into the places divorce has left some scars.
Yeah, because there are scars a lot of times. It does create trauma for many children or maybe even adults. So one thing that you can do is just bring the pain into the light And you can do this through honest prayer. Psalm 62:8 says, pour your heart out before him. God is a refuge for us. He wants you to come to him. And pain that's hidden tends to fester. It gets worse. But when you pour out your heart, when you share that heartbreak, that confession, the anger or the grief, and you pour that out to God, you give him access to begin the healing. And he will heal you from the inside out, which is really important. And let your spouse in on this pain. And when, as you pour out to God, you can share that with your spouse as well.
Well, and every time you kind of feel that pain, it's a great opportunity to pray honestly with no filters, no performance, just name what hurts.
Yeah.
Maybe right now what's hitting you is abandonment or fear, betrayal, identity wounds, whatever it is. And you can use the Psalms as a guide.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I love David's relationship with God. It was just honest, it was raw, it was real, and he just modeled that type of prayer. Just as you would talk to anybody else about what's going on, he talks to God, and he's emotional, he's real, he's often raw. Sometimes he's angry and he's like, God, just destroy and kill all my enemies. And other times he's weeping and broken over his own sin. But here's the thing. Healing begins when we stop pretending and start bringing God our real story. So every time you feel that pain, it's a great opportunity to go and take it to God.
That's right. Now, if you came from a broken home, if you came from a divorced home, then most likely you have some lies that you have been believing.
Yeah.
Some things have gotten in there, they've seeped into your mind, and they have become reality for you, even though they are not true. So one thing that you need to do is replace broken beliefs with biblical truth.
Yeah.
The Bible even says in John, you will know the truth and the truth will set you free. You've probably heard that phrase often. Yeah, in movies, TV, wherever it may be. The truth will set you free. It's not just a phrase, that's a Bible verse from John 8:32. Because a lot of times divorce will plant false beliefs in your heart like this. I'm not lovable. And maybe when your parents divorced, one parent left.
Yeah.
I mean, in divorce, right? Like the whole point of divorce is that we're no longer together. So therefore someone's going to leave the house. Now, a lot of times there's really great after divorce marriages or relationships, co-parenting, where the kids go back and forth and both parents are still fully invested and fully engaged in the children's lives. But oftentimes one parent leaves, and that can leave a child believing that they're not lovable, or believing people always leave, or I wasn't good enough for my dad or my mom to want to stay. It was easy for them to leave. And you can start believing these lies. You believe them so long that they become part of your identity, whether you know it or not. Another lie that you might believe is marriage never lasts, or marriage isn't real, or any relationship that looks good isn't real. And these lies become emotional strongholds unless they are replaced by truth. So how can we replace lies with truth, Thomas?
That's a good question, and it's really not difficult.
Yeah.
But as with all things, you're going to change anything, it takes intentionality. So the best way to do it is to write down the lie the divorce experience taught you, whatever it is. And Lysandra, you brought up these three, so I'll just kind of bring them back up. I am not lovable. People always leave. Marriage never lasts. Could be a number of other things, whatever it is. You write down that lie, and then you're going to find a Bible verse that directly counters whatever that lie is. So with all the digital tools we have now, you don't just have to read through your entire Bible until you find one. Through Google or AI or whatever else, you literally just type it in there like, hey, what is a verse that counteracts the lie that people always leave?
Right.
And it'll spit you out a whole list of verses. Pick one or two that really speak to you, and then speak that verse out loud daily until your heart begins to believe it. So you're basically retraining your heart and your mind on what the truth is. And this is the thing. God's word is not just information. It's medicine for the soul, but you have to put it into practice.
Yes. And I love the story of Joseph and his brothers because he had a broken, dysfunctional home. There were two mothers, and then another two servants were brought into the marriage, and there's kids from multiple mothers, one
Chaos
dad,
and conflict.
It's a nightmare when you
Yeah.
read through it. I'll tell you what, if you like drama, go ahead and read Genesis, and you're going to enjoy the drama there.
Well, and it reminds me of how much our listeners who have blended families or from blended families often go through. Because
Yeah.
got all these families trying to cohabitate and live together at one
Right.
time, and it can be difficult sometimes.
Well, right. Well, and this family got so bad that Joseph's brothers faked his death, sold him into slavery, and it just went really bad. And a lot of different things happened. I'm not going to go into the details because we're out of time. But I do want you to hear what Joseph said at the end of all of it when he was brought face to face with those brothers who faked his death and sold him as a slave. This is what he said. What was meant for evil, God meant for good. And wow, what a powerful statement he made, especially considering his past. But here's what you can take from that, is that God never wastes your pain.
That's good.
Your scars can become sacred places of healing, not just for you, but for others too. And you can help other people through it. When you surrender your past to him, he redeems it. He has a plan to make your life beautiful, even if it kind of looks like a broken road.
Yeah. Well, and it reminds me of the fact of Scripture that he is working all things together for good. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't always feel good in the moment, and sometimes we don't see how it's working for good, but we know who he is. Mm-hmm. He is trustworthy. He's dependable, so we know he is working. And here's an easy way to do that. You're talking about redeeming that for good. Just go to God in prayer and ask him, how do you want to use this part of my story for good?
It's such a good question.
And I think about some of the worst things that have happened to me in my life, and the opportunity that I now have to use those things. Like if I could go back and do it again, I wouldn't go through it.
Yeah.
But I'm able to use even the worst moments of my life to help other people, and that is such a wonderful thing. Mm-hmm. And so you can ask God what he's trying to do in your life. Be open to sharing your testimony in safe settings, whether it's church or mentoring or whatever else. Let God use your healing journey to help someone else start theirs.
That is so beautiful, because your broken story can become someone else's lifeline when you give it back to God.
Yeah.
The scars of divorce are real. We are not minimizing them.
No, not at all.
But you know what else is real? The healing power of Jesus.
Yeah.
That's real too. And it's bigger than any scar any of us have. He doesn't just patch us up, but he actually makes us whole, makes us new. Behold, all things become new, the Bible says. So you may carry wounds, yes, but in Christ you don't have to carry shame. And I love what you said, because your past describes you, but it does not define you.
Well, and that's the truth of the matter is what you just said. You may carry wounds, but in Christ you don't have to carry shame, because even Jesus himself carries wounds.
Yes, he does.
He rose from the dead. He conquered sin, conquered death. But the wounds and the scars were still there. Mm-hmm. But you're not doomed to repeat what you saw. Mm-hmm. Through intentional, Spirit-led actions, you can build a new legacy, one rooted in faithfulness, safety, and love.
Amen. Now, if you would like maybe a little more information on this, maybe this is really striking a nerve, this is the thing that you needed to hear, but you need a little more, we want to offer to you a bonus resource. It is Breaking the Cycle of Divorce. And this is just a reflection guide, something that's going to take you a little bit deeper into this topic. And if this is something that could help you, then just simply send us an email, info@familymeeting.org, and we will send you this reflection guide, Breaking the Cycle of Divorce. So
family meeting, what you're going to do is you're going to sit down and just talk about what your experience was like growing up in going through that divorce. And as we talked about, hey, what are the lies? How has that impacted your life in a negative way? And then, all right, what scriptures counteract that? You're going to begin to work to replace whatever that lie is with the truth of Scripture.
I love it. Well, thank you for joining us today. We appreciate you listening or watching by way of YouTube. Please go and subscribe to the Family Meeting Podcast from your favorite podcast provider. And if you found this information helpful, please share it on social media and invite your friends and family to listen in with you.
To find more content and information Lysandra and I provide, you can go to our website, familymeeting.org, or email us at info@familymeeting.org. If you'd like to shoot us a text or call us, you can send a voice message at 904-257-3062.
And we want to invite you to join us next week. We love when you join us for our family meetings. And next week, we are going to have one discussing why playing pretend with your kids is vital to your child's development. This one is going to be much more lighthearted and fun.
Yeah.
We are going to share with you some of our favorite stories, some of our favorite things that we did with our girls when they were young. And honestly, we cannot wait for next week's episode. It's going to be a really fun one. So please don't miss it. Join in with us.
Thanks for joining us today for this family meeting. Have a great week, everybody. This meeting is adjourned. Yeah, so we're all impacted by the homes that we grew up in, whatever happened positively, negatively. And, you grow up in a home that went through divorce, that does impact you. And it's important for us to be cognizant of how that may or may not have impacted us as we carry that into our current relationships. And whatever the lie is, whether it's something that's breaking trust or maybe it's just something personal about us, like now I believe I'm not worthy of love because of the relationship of my parents split up. Got to understand what that is so that we can take steps to counteract that and change the way that we think about that or change our behavior towards our spouse. So what are some things, though, that maybe we didn't touch on? We just shared 5 things as we talked about, but there's plenty of other things we could have talked about. What do you think is something that other listeners, other people watching on YouTube should know about growing up in a divorced home and the impact it can have on your marriage personally? We'd love to continue that conversation with you. We'd also love to see you in Garland, Texas, Levon Drive, October 18th for marriage conference there. Looking forward to a great time together, and we're looking forward to seeing you right here on the podcast next Wednesday.
Yes.
We'll see you then.